Cryptocurrencies and digital currencies and global currencies and cashless society. Everybody's talking about it. I'm not sure everybody knows what it means, but with us today, we have a very special guest. He is uh, incredibly brilliant. I gave a talk at the Red Pill Expo some months ago, and Travis came up to me afterward, and he's like, "Hey, you need to know about these things." And he started talking, and I was just absolutely blown away with his insight and his wisdom. So we have a very special guest with us today. His name is Travis Bajema. I don't know exactly how you pronounce your last name, Travis. You'll have to tell us. He is the economic ninja on YouTube, as long as YouTube lets him be up there, and he knows a lot about a lot of things, but especially cryptocurrencies, digital currencies, and what's going on in the financial system. So you won't want to miss this. Travis, thank you so much for being with us.
Hey, no problem. So a fun little way of remembering my name, it's you say buy him a Coke really fast. So you just say buy him a Coke and you'll never forget it.
Okay, so the way to pronounce it is Bajema.
Yep.
Awesome. All right, Bajema, Travis Bajema. Um, Cool. Well, Mr. Byama, thank you very much for coming on with us today. So let's start talking about the obvious crypto question. I just as fortune would have it, I just spent a while today in a meeting on Bitcoin with an incredibly brilliant guy. Everybody's talking about Bitcoin because Bitcoin went from I mean, the first Bitcoins I bought, I think I paid 50 cents for them before they got jacked. I'd literally be a millionaire right now if those hadn't gotten stolen. Mount Gox collapsed, one of the big exchanges. Now Bitcoins are like, last time I looked, they were like $40,000. So what's the story, Travis? Is Bitcoin a sensible idea in your view? Explain to somebody who's never come across crypto, who doesn't really know much about it. What is it? And should people be rushing out and investing money in it? What do you think?
Yeah. So first off, no one should rush out and invest money in anything, right? But I will say this that I believe in my professional and personal opinion, Bitcoin, the invention of the distributed ledger and decentralized distributed ledger is greater than the invention of the internet itself. And the sad thing is that people really don't understand how big of a deal it is. And they always jump in when the prices are high. We saw the same thing in 2017. So, quite frankly, I believe it is such a big deal. And people, especially on your channel, people that love freedom, that love peace and prosperity, they need to spend at least 20 minutes to an hour just to read about it and understand not only what it is, but who has owned it for quite some time, because that's really telling.
So walk us through the basics of Bitcoin, Travis. So what is, somebody who doesn't know anything about this, they hear a Bitcoin, oh, it's going crazy. Should I buy some? What does it mean to buy some? What is a Bitcoin? What is this blockchain ledger that you're talking about? And you talk about it as a major opportunity for freedom. But in a moment, I want to ask you about whether there are opportunities for totalitarians to exploit this technology too. But let's start just with what is a Bitcoin? What is the Bitcoin system? Why is it worth so much money right now? And where do you think it's headed?
Okay, perfect. So first off, Bitcoin is a currency. All right. And there are many cryptocurrencies out there. We'll specifically talk about Bitcoin at first. Now, when I say it's a digital currency, remember, before your mind goes to close off, we need to remember that 99% of all transactions around the world in the US dollar are digital. Okay. There's only about 3.2 trillion physical paper notes. If you added them all up throughout the world, that's not very much considering that Citibank has well over 20 trillion. Some people say much higher than that worth of derivatives in the US dollar. Okay. So let's get that lined out first. Secondly, Bitcoin, in the most simplest terms, is a protocol in which someone like yourself would run the distributed ledger on their computer, the program. And what it does is it is a checks and balances. It makes sure that every time a Bitcoin, or actually a Satoshi, because we have to remember that people go, well, how could I afford a Bitcoin because it's $40,000? The actual currency denomination is called a Satoshi. Okay. So just like if you had a $100 bill in your pocket and you wanted to go to Starbucks to buy a well overpriced coffee for $6, you wouldn't use the $100 and get nothing back. So we talk about Satoshis, but every time a Satoshi is traded between one account to another, every single computer running the Bitcoin protocol must record it. And first, it's doing one thing. It makes sure that Satoshi was a real Satoshi and it has its entire history behind it. And then now it records it into that new wallet. So it's called a trustless system because the program is built in a way that nobody can take it over because of the amount of computers that are running the protocol. They all have to agree. It's called consensus.
And so explain this ledger, this blockchain ledger to us, because I think for older people, this stuff just you might as well be speaking in Chinese.
Perfect.
What is a blockchain ledger?
Okay, so let's go back to the old days where there were only banks. You didn't have even an ATM card, which to go back in my life, I was probably in probably the eighth grade, where I would go to my bank and I would have my savings book or my checkbook. There was no electronic forms of money at that point that was mainstream, for the common man. And every time you made a deposit or a withdrawal, if you were doing your bank account right, you kept it in your check register or your savings register. Well, the bank also did that. Even before, well before I was around, they did it all in writing. So that was their ledger. And then they transferred that over to computers. Well, the problem with that was banks had what's called centralized record keeping. They would keep it on their local system, and then as the banks grew, they put them on servers and networks. But they were still very centralized. And to give you an example, back in the early 90s, to wipe out a bank, you only needed to stop one or two colo systems, which were large mainframe systems that companies would rent out for storage and data keeping purposes for these banks. Well, now you have what's called this decentralized ledger that is kept on literally hundreds of thousands, if not now millions of computers worldwide. So you are now not prone to geographical attacks. And the way that the protocol is written, you need what's called 51% consensus to be able to do any major changes to the protocol itself. And even when that's happened, like a split or a fork, it's done extremely fairly.
Huh, that's fascinating. And so you talked about the opportunities for the blockchain systems to be liberating for mankind, maybe especially before the regulators come in. So let's start on that. How could the blockchain system benefit a common person, maybe who's not very technologically sophisticated?
Perfect. So a couple different ways. So first off, and I want to speak directly to your audience because I know your audience is probably very big on sovereignty. The idea of precious metals really appeals to them because they like the idea of being able to transact in a currency that is finite, right? So we already know that Bitcoin is finite because the way the code is written, there's only so many Bitcoins that will ever be produced. So that's very important to know, right? As well as the time factor. As the time goes on, there's fewer and fewer Bitcoin available on the open market because of the reward getting cut in half every time there's what's called a halving. So that's another thing that's very similar to silver and gold because as time goes on and we have more consumption, there's fewer of that metal, even though we have advances in technology with mining, there's just fewer of the metal out there. So I want to put those two together. Now, as far as you were referring to the freedom aspect, right? Or how it can benefit us.
Hmm.
So the freedom part is first off anonymity. Right now we have a very interesting time point. Whereas 3 years ago, when I was telling people why they need to get into blockchain, I was telling them because there's going to be a day where there's no way you can hide transactions, right? Now, the reason why I said that, there is, but for the common person, they don't get really involved. They don't want to know the back end of anything, how it works. They want to be able to turn on their computer, get on Amazon, or use the computer for what it is for their social media, things like that. But they don't really care about the back end. If they did, they have something like McAfee or another antivirus that takes care of anything that harms them. Well, with blockchain, you're able to right now be able to take things off of exchanges. If you went to buy a Bitcoin, let's say you use Gemini or Coinbase, you're able right now to be able to pull it off and put it into what's called cold storage. Or you can use a mobile wallet or a web wallet
And cold
that
storage, just to be clear, is when you save it like on an external device or something, put it in your desk so nobody can jack it from you, huh?
exactly like a Trezor or a Ledger. And really, it's not the Bitcoin going on that. What is the device is actually doing is it's hiding your private keys, and it's cryptographically storing those
And you
private
use
keys.
your keys to access your Bitcoin in
Exactly,
the ledger or whatever, right?
exactly. Totally. No names attached to it, anything like that. And that's why. what's neat about the ledger is it has a truth factor where I can see how much Bitcoin is moving from one wallet to the next, but the wallets do not have any names unless those wallets are associated with regulated accounts, like an exchange account right now. But there is regulations moving in right now to actually stop that. So for right now, there is a lot of privacy involved, but that's actually going to come to an end here pretty shortly. There are privacy coins out there that do a great job at hiding transactions. However, the government has spent literally tens of millions of dollars on contracts with private firms to go out and attack these actual projects. So that's something that people need to be aware of. So it's an interesting line. It's, do you want your privacy or do you want to make money? Because there's two different routes you can go. You could take advantage of both, but for right now, just literally for right now, I think in the future we're going to see so much regulation, especially with what we're seeing right now with Ripple and the SEC lawsuit, that there's going to be a time where you're going to be able to own it. They're never going to take it away from you, but you'll never get the full benefits of holding it in your possession and being able to literally be your own bank and do what banks do to make money.
Yeah, and that's really interesting. Earlier this morning, a man in Switzerland who was helping walk me through some of this literally sent me some Bitcoin through the system or whatever, and he was like, you know what? No banks, no governments. You didn't have to ask permission. You didn't have to use the Swift system. They can't deplatform you here. You just got money, right? And
Exactly.
and then you could take that money, you could convert it into U.S. dollars or whatever you wanted to. Really, really interesting. But so you think that government is going to crack down on this? And I saw the weirdo who runs Twitter, who thinks he should get to decide who gets to speak, whether that be the president of the United States or not. He's promoting Bitcoin big time, which makes me really suspicious when you have totalitarian people like that openly pushing this. So, what are your thoughts? Is Bitcoin the way to go? You think it's going to keep rising in price? Was this a setup? Can the NSA find out? Are there better coins? And I know that's a lot of questions, but it's a big topic.
It is a big topic. So let's start actually with let's back up and let's talk about Mr. Twitter. He has been on record saying that he buys Bitcoin every day, and that should cause the common man to wake up and pay attention to what's going on, because it's not just him. If you go on YouTube, you can see many, actually almost every billionaire and multimillionaire on earth from 2015 to 2017 put out videos that not only did they own Bitcoin, that they believed it was going to be worth millions of dollars. And the reason why people like this can come out and just flippantly, what you may think, or the public may think, just come out and flippantly say something like that, but they actually know it to be truth because they have a different mindset about currency and value. And what's sad is that they are just buying it up, and then eventually they will slowly sell it to the public, just like what we saw with PayPal when they announced, "Hey, we're selling Bitcoin, come and get it." And what we found out was that they were slowly accumulating it when it was much cheaper. And at first, to keep the market liquid, they were just selling you the Bitcoin they already owned for much higher prices. So to answer your question, do I believe it's going to be higher? You don't even have to ask me. JP Morgan just came out and said it's going to be worth $150,000 this year. Citibank came out with a $300,000 price tag. The Guggenheim just came out on CNBC and announced, when they were told, "What do you think Bitcoin is worth right now?" They said 400,000, and the man interviewing him was choking on his own spit. The facts are, people don't realize how amazing this technology is. And sadly, you are correct. There is going to be a time where they are going to track you, and they're already doing it. Christine Lagarde just came out and said that she is calling for more heavier regulations on Bitcoin. And what they want to do is what's called whitelisting addresses. And it's a very simple process. It's like KYC, know your customer. They simply want to be able to put a face and a name to the Bitcoin. Super simple, right? You think, hey, that's fine. Most people beg for regulation. It's sad because they don't realize what regulation does. But what's going to happen is there's going to be a day, and it's already happening in my local bank. I walked in the other day, and there was a plaque that says, "How would you like to open up your own digital wallet? Let us help you with that." And that's because 6 months ago, the government gave the green light for banks to be able to legally custody your private keys, which means they're going to just make it super streamlined and simple. And you're going to walk into the bank and they say, "How would you like to buy some Bitcoin today and open up your own account?" You can just tell us how much you want, $5, $10, and we'll charge you a hefty fee to do it. And you'll think it's the greatest thing. Sad thing is you don't even realize that all of those are going to be their derivatives. That's why we see issues with Coinbase right now, because they don't actually hold all of the underlying security that you believe that you're buying. And I apologize, I shouldn't call it a security because it is a commodity, but I mean, sorry, a currency. But literally, the SEC lawsuit right now is so hot with Ripple and XRP. It's just in the back of my mind. They want to call it a security so that they can hold their thumb on top of you with more and more regulation. But really, it doesn't even pass the Howey test. Sorry,
So
I'm
if
totally
you
going.
have so if you have Bitcoin in Coinbase, would you recommend that people get that out and put it in their wallet
100%.
or?
Yes, you will notice one thing: when Bitcoin skyrockets, Coinbase coincidentally closes down. They have issues, and this isn't one time, two times, three times. It's been many times. As a matter of fact, let me walk you through a simple transaction with Coinbase, as opposed to what I really love is Gemini, started by the Winklevoss twins, and it's a U.S. regulated exchange out of San Diego. You go into your bank and you wire $100 to Coinbase, and then you wire $100 to Gemini. Now, I have both of these accounts. I have institutional trading accounts because I built companies around cryptocurrency because I started seeing the writing on the wall a while ago. Both wires go out, both wires cost $50. Gemini's wire hits my account, my wire to Gemini, within about an hour and a half. Coinbase takes till about 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Then I'm able to buy on both exchanges immediately some Bitcoin with that $100. With Gemini, I can immediately, the second it hits, buy it and then pull it off onto cold storage, get it off of the exchange, right? Uh, yeah, Coinbase tells me literally you have to wait 72 hours before you can pull it off. Now that is an immediate sign that they don't own it, because they say they
Hmm.
don't trust. They want to make sure that you've got it and it's going to be safe. That's insane, because the other way we know is when the big Bitcoin fork happened years ago. It was the Bitcoin Cash fork. What happened is people started suing Coinbase because they said, on a certain block, the second, 51% of the network thought, hey, we can do it better. We can make a better version of Bitcoin. Well, what's amazing about this software is they say when that happens and we decide to fork and essentially split Bitcoin into two, and we're going to make one's going to stay Bitcoin and one's going to be Bitcoin Cash, then the protocol says that whoever split the Bitcoin Cash, you have to give all of the original holders of Bitcoin the exact amount of Bitcoin Cash that they have in Bitcoin. So now it's just like you got literally free money. And so that's, again, bringing it down to the protocol being a completely trustless, fair system. Well, when all these people had money in Coinbase Bitcoin, they said, where is our Bitcoin Cash? Because all the other exchanges, it was an immediate, it's a time issue, right? When the block is finalized and Bitcoin Cash is to be produced, anyone that had one Bitcoin got one Bitcoin Cash put in their account. And Coinbase said, no, no, this isn't safe. We want to make sure it's safe. And it took almost 6 months, I believe, if my memory serves me right, to finally get the Bitcoin Cash, and a ton of lawsuits filed. Well, that shows me right there, that's proof positive that they don't own the underlying securities and they're having to go out and grab it. And that's what really makes me fearful. And now we have what's called DeFi, which is decentralized finance, where you are not only able to become your own bank, you're able to take your money and go out and lend it into the system. You're able to make a yield. You're able to do what's called invoice factoring. That's how the banks worldwide make 80% of their revenue. But you could never do it because you have to be an accredited investor to do that. And I know I became an accredited investor back in 2004 and found out how dirty that whole system was too. So
Hmm.
I've been warning people about it forever. So sorry, I'm going off on a tangent, but
No, that's fascinating. So before we finish today, I definitely want to get into where you think the global financial system is going and the currencies, but I want to spend another few minutes on crypto. Bitcoin is the one that everybody knows, but there are, I think the guy today from Switzerland told me there was like 8,000 other cryptocurrencies. I mean, I guess Ethereum is one of the big ones. Um, y- which ones how does a normal person who doesn't have 1,000 hours to spend looking into cryptocurrency, how do you know which one makes sense, which one is a scam? How does a normal person navigate this, Travis?
okay, before I answer that question, I want to break it down to two segments. There are cryptocurrencies, because we all use Bitcoin in the industry. We use Bitcoin as a generic term, but there's way more currencies out there than Bitcoin. Quite frankly, my favorite one is DigiByte. But there is also what's called tokens. Tokens are built by a company, and they're ran on a platform like Ethereum. Ethereum is the largest platform for running tokens that can do what's called a smart contract. So imagine when I was talking about invoice factoring, a company like Populous came along and said, hey, the banks make 80% of their revenue by doing short-term loans against companies' invoices. It's actually horrific robbery, but it's the system we live in, and that's how they make all their money. Well, this company like named Populous came along and said, hey, we can provide this on the blockchain, and now everyone can do that kind of lending, and the government's freaking out, right? So you have to break it down. There's currencies, and then there's tokens, right? So imagine it's even more, it's better than a share of ownership in the company because it's actually used. You actually use the token to make you money, or you use the token like in Orchid's situation, it's a VPN. And so you would use the token to not only pay for VPN services, but you actually receive money back, because if you want to use your computer to help uphold the virtual private network, you get paid to do it. So it's a whole new world of finance. Okay, you have now become your own bank. Now, to answer your question about the different cryptocurrency projects, there are many. There's Bitcoin, there's Litecoin, which was forked from Bitcoin. There's DigiByte, which was forked from Litecoin. Now, there's many, many more, but I'll just focus on those first three to make it simple. Since 2014, Bitcoin, Litecoin, and DigiByte are 3 of 6 projects that have stayed in the top 100 most valuable cryptocurrency projects on Earth the entire time. So that's, I want people to understand when they're researching things, there's a lot of glitz and glamour out there right now with all these amazing projects, and they're going up in value, but they don't always necessarily go up in value or down in value because of their use case. It's because of people pumping money in. And quite frankly, I'm sure you would agree with me that advertisers are advertising itself is a pretty scary industry because of how much an advertiser knows how they can manipulate a public, right? So as you know, we have projects that have amazing advertising. It doesn't always mean that it's a good project and it's going to be around for a long time. So I picked DigiByte personally just because it is so decentralized. And if anyone wants to take a look at it, because every project has something better than the next one, right? DigiByte's claim to fame is instead of one mining algorithm, and mining is the process in which a computer does complex math equations to uphold the network and to be able to access the next block of rewards, whatever coin that is, DigiByte, Litecoin, or Bitcoin, and then it gets distributed amongst the miners. They also help uphold the network, and then their people run nodes to uphold the network and make it even stronger. And I don't want to get too technical, I apologize. We're trying to do that higher up view. But DigiByte did 5 different mining algorithms. And each algorithm has its own special purpose. And when we're talking about a 51% attack, and that's what is something that's really on the minds of a lot of Bitcoin holders and investors, because right now, the majority of hash power, the mining power, is in China right now for Bitcoin. So Jared Tate, an American, amazing person, came up with this way of forking off of Litecoin, which came from Bitcoin. And he said, look, we're going to do 5 mining algorithms that involve different types of machines to mine it, to make it even more difficult. And then one of those, we're going to make it so difficult that China or these large countries can't just start these mining farms and take it over, because you have to literally hand reset the algorithm your equipment every 2 weeks. So that's amazing. And it was never pre-mined. So that's something that's really important too. You have to look at where these projects came from. The day DigiByte came out, it was just like Bitcoin. It came out, if you wanted it, you had to go get it. You had to go mine it. And no one pre-mined it and saved up some for themselves and then said, okay, now you guys can start mining it. And I've got 10 million by myself. So that's something that's really important to watch for too.
Interesting. Okay. Very cool. And when you came up to me at the Red Pill Expo, you talked some about where the financial system was going, where currency was going, where the banking system was going, and since then, I guess that was in October. We've seen now all over the world central banks coming out and saying, hey, we're going to be doing the digital currency thing. We're going to be moving more and more toward a cashless society. And so a lot of what you said to me then has actually come to pass. So walk us through, if you would, in the last few minutes that we have left here, Travis, where do you think the global economic system, the global currency system, the global monetary system, the global banking system are heading? And what are some ideas on how people might prepare for what's coming?
Perfect. So the thing is, it's not like I had a crystal ball when I was talking to you. Those digital currencies had already been produced, and they had actually. I read the original white paper on the our Federal Reserve's digital dollar back in 2017, and that report had come out in 2014. It was a paper out of Yale, white paper. Um, what you're seeing now is the rollout, the official rollout, and it's getting faster and faster. And what I want people to understand is, first off, digital currencies are not blockchain. There is a ledger system, but again, like we talked about in the old West days when the bank would keep its own ledger, that's what a digital currency is. It is a very centralized form of money. And what is going to happen is there's a fight right now in our government that not a lot of people want to talk about because it'll get us, shut down real quick. But our president actually signed an agreement about the quantum financial system and funded it with tens of billions of dollars back in 2018. And there is a fight right now to force banking institutions to put their transactions on a decentralized ledger and or a centralized ledger that is out in the public, similar to what you're seeing with XRP right now. And I believe that's why you're seeing the lawsuit recently with the SEC, which they will fail, in my opinion, in the next few weeks. Um, what digital currencies are going to do, and it's very sad because they already have the rollout, they're ready to do it. They're going to hand every single one of us free money. And people think it's a lot of money, like what we just saw with this $600, which was quite frankly a joke in comparison to how much they are putting in the banking system every day through the repo operation to prop the banks up. What they're going to do is they're going to slowly get you hooked, and then they're going to build a narrative that you have to get rid of cash because it's spreading germs. The initial mental shock has already been set through the country for this, and they're ready to go. Um, and every country already has that digital currency. However, we're seeing some of them coming out, which is blowing my mind. Like the Ukraine recently, they approached Stellar Lumens to write their digital currency, which is quite frankly amazing to me because it's not as centralized as one would think. The Fed digital dollar is straightforward centralized, and they can and will control your purchases, just like we're seeing with the control of the social media platforms right now.
Yeah, that's a terrifying thought, especially when you consider all these big banks now they're shutting down the president of the United States accounts, they're shutting down his business accounts. We've got Facebook and Twitter deplatforming whoever they feel like. I mean, it's a scary world. You have companies now, we won't do business with you if you're a Trump supporter, or if you believe in marriage or whatever. It's getting to be a scary world. So last but certainly not least, Travis, what do we do to prepare for this? Can it be resisted? What are some ways to resist it? And where do people follow you? Where can people learn more about this? I know there's a lot of people out there like, oh my goodness, you just opened a door into a world that I had never even thought of. How do I find out more?
Perfect. So let me real quick back up to the scary part of the social media. Right now, there are people, cyberpunks around the world right now, coming up with a solution today for this. And I'll give you an example. The reason why I love DigiByte is because first off, no one has ever been paid to write a line of code in DigiByte. And literally 40%, there's actually a greater than 40% of all cryptocurrency projects right now on Earth have taken code from DigiByte for their security side to make their project even more strong because DigiByte is an open source platform. So what happened the other day when we saw these media platforms shut down, Jared Tate, who is the founder but has stepped back because no decentralized currency should have a centralized figure, a board of directors, anything like that. So he stepped back, but he did come out of silence for this. And he said, "That's it. We're starting a blockchain-based social media messaging app that cannot be hacked." because DigiByte cannot be hacked. It's I'm sorry, I get excited about this, but what he's doing is the way you log in, you'll be using your a wallet, a generic wallet. You could put like $1 worth of currency on it just to log into the platform, and then everything is blockchain based, and it has to have the consensus, so everything will be recorded with zero, and I'm not joking, zero um, uh, uh, people. No one's going to be able to come into it and actually stop it, and that could have its scary side too, because you're going to see a lot of gnarly things. But quite frankly, the things that I used to get on to, that little bird app on that we used to click on all the time, was because that was a platform where I was able to see the real footage or the real photos of something and be able to show people. Well, that is going to be available on the DigiByte blockchain here pretty soon. As a matter of fact, within 48 hours, there was already hundreds of coders that were jumping onto the project that you get to see in real time, working on the actual project in real time. It's absolutely amazing. So sorry it took so long. So now to talk about what you can do right now. First off, you need to get onto YouTube. There are people like myself that are way smarter than me that have put amazing documentaries together with the richest people in the world telling you where this is going. And the cool thing is you can go look at that video that's 4 years old and go, oh my gosh, it's happening. So it brings some truth and some validity to this topic. But there's people like me. I'm on YouTube. My channel is called The Economic Ninja. I just came out and started talking about this because it was just boiling up in my spirit so much, because we do only have so much time. But if you're in America, know this, that most cryptocurrencies are not legal for you to own. The government has stopped it, and they're not regulating it. They're threatening regulation with what they're doing, just like what they're doing with XRP right now, until they're forced to do something. Everyone else in the world can freely buy, except there are some restrictions in China. There's a lot of restrictions in Germany, but by and large, America is the hardest, the hardest hammer smacking down people trying to invest. But right now, you can open up a Gemini exchange. There's Bittrex. There's a lot of exchanges in America that are very easy to start. But I would caution your followers to please do research before, because they call it the Wild Wild West. It's because you are being handed something that's decentralized, which means it's all on you. You don't have an insurance company, just like with what you went through with Mt. Gox. You don't have an insurance company that you can pay to insure you. You don't have the FDIC backing you. But then again, you have now all the benefits of not having inflation, having a totally different type of manipulation, because there is manipulation out there, but on blockchain, it's a more emotional manipulation, because banks can't fake Bitcoins. They can't just flood the exchange with fake Bitcoin. What they do is they set up 2 accounts. They put $1 million on the exchange, scare a bunch of people off, and then they just sell them back and forth for lower amounts, and they don't even miss a beat. It's sad, but once you see the game and see that this is not the same as the manipulation they do with gold, silver, and stocks, you really start to get excited, because then the world opens up. It's total world of possibilities.
Awesome. And Travis, what is your YouTube channel again? It's The Economic Ninja. People can find that just typing it into the search bar.
It is, and my Twitter handle is @Economy Ninja.
Economy Ninja. All right, folks. I know that's a lot to digest, a lot thrown at you in a short time, but this is important. It's going to become more and more important in the years ahead. So now would probably be a good time to start looking into it if you haven't started yet. That was Travis Bajema, like Bajema Coke, except Bajema. And
Yeah.
Travis, we thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us and sharing your insights with us. Folks, go follow his channel on YouTube, subscribe here, follow us everywhere else, and thank you very much for watching. God bless.